Coming up this time, a European Cup winner remembers some wise words.
We were in the airport lounge and the gaffer called me over and said, "I want a word with you, son." And I said, "Yes, boss." He went, "You were the best player on the field tonight, son, by a long way, long way, son."
Plus the unusual preparation for the big game.
We were sat on a beach and we was having a few beers and not really thinking about the following week when the game was coming around. And, you know, all I can say is genius, absolute genius.
There's more of that classic tale of training on a roundabout in Madrid.
The gaffer said, "Young Millsy, go and get that bag of balls and go and train Peter because Peter wants to train." So me and Jimmy Gordon were on this roundabout, you know, and he was throwing balls to me and I was volleying them to Schultz.
And the impact of huge success when you're still a teenager.
You know, where do you go from there? You know, England schoolboys, England youth, 2 European Cup finals, and I was 18, and I'm a human being, you know, and you have to be some person not to let it affect you slightly, that think this game's just easy, you know, it's just going to come along like this all the time, and you soon learn that that's not the case.
All that, plus many more great stories and the chance to win a book signed by my special guest.
Son, when you wave to me, it's very difficult. If you put your hands up one way, that's waving. If you turn your hands round and there's 2 fingers, I tend to ignore it, you know.
You're listening to the Green Jumper podcast with myself, Marcus Alton, the editor of the tribute website, brianclough.com. And my guest today is a European Cup winner of whom Cloughie once said he's got everything going for him as a player and his personality is something special too. It's a warm welcome to Gary Mills.
Good evening.
Hello there. Nice to see you, Gary, and thanks very much for joining us. Yeah, he said you had quite a personality, and I guess he had quite a personality, to say the least. Do you remember the first time you met him?
I do. Unofficially, it was playing for my junior side, Long Buckby.
Oh, yeah.
And his first words were to me, "Get up. There's nothing wrong with you." As my coach ran on the pitch after me getting tackled by somebody, and I was 14, and that was his first words to me. So that was an unofficial meeting with him, and then a few weeks later I was up having trial at Forest, and the rest is history, really.
Yeah, you came obviously through the youth ranks at Forest, and he must have seen something in you at that point. What sort of encouragement did he give you?
Well, that's an interesting question. It was about me turning into a man at 14, and that was his words to me. And he certainly made sure that happened from the age of 14, with me playing in the Central League at that age, which was a tough league.
Yeah, against
quality first team players. And just really giving me rollickings when I needed them, and giving me a pat on the back and telling me how good I was and how good I was going to be when I needed to be. And to be honest, it was 2 years of growing up that was incredible for me. It was not realising at that age that's what he was doing, which then enabled me to make my debut at 16, being part of the first team. I was training with the first team coming up in school holidays, and being treated like a first team player. So it was an incredible time for me.
You made that first division debut against Arsenal at the City Ground, September 78, I think it was. Did he have any specific advice for you before the game, or did he just sort of let you get on with it?
Just let me get on with it. And that was something he do. He never really gave you advice. You had to know your job.
Yeah.
And basically that was it. Go out and do your job, son. You know. And I knew what my job was on the right-hand side of midfield. It was to get up and down. It was to get to the back post when Robbo was crossing the ball. And just do my job. And I knew from that very early age that it was as simple as that with him, that I had to do my job. And that remained no different for years and years that I remained at the football club.
Yeah, I've got a clipping here from the Football Post, March 79 it was, and the headline is "Patience is the name of the game for youngsters," and a picture of yourself there alongside Bryn Gunn. And it's basically just saying that I think the quote is, "You're near yet so far from glory," and it was just a case of biding your time. You'd got into the England schoolboys side actually as a fullback, but then obviously you were pushed forward at Forest.
Well, no, I was a forward. I was a forward. I played as a forward as a in my junior side, and for my village side I played for my school side. And it was funny actually when I went for the England trials that the coach there in my very last trial, we went for about 4 or 5 trials to get through to be part of the squad, and the last trial he went, "I want you to go and play right back." And I says, "I've never played right back in my life, I'm a striker." And he said, "But I want you to go and play right back for me in this trial game." And I loved it. I couldn't believe how well I'd done at fullback. And it was a different, obviously, looking at a different aspect of the game from a fullback position rather than a striker. And and without realising, I went and played fullback for England schoolboys for about 8 or 9 games. Scored at Wembley.
Oh wow!
For England schoolboy from fullback. And so it was a bit special. And obviously years and years later, Brian Clough's words to me were, you're going to play fullback. You're never going to make a strike-away. You got a hole in your, what. So that was obviously saw something in me. And then when I went on to Leicester City, I basically played fullback there virtually all my time there, like 200 games. So I was a striker turned fullback rather than the other way around that you just mentioned. Yeah,
I see. And as a 17-year-old, I was looking in some old archives. Brian Clough described you as the lad who will pay for our new stand, the executive stand, or the Brian Clough stand as it's known now. Did you feel any pressure from that kind of expectation?
No, I didn't feel any pressure. In fact, it was the other way around. It just gave me that much confidence. I think at the time the Gaffer was giving me, that in the papers, in the press, that type of highlighting what I was about. Even I've got articles with him saying that I would be going to the next World Cup, and things like this. So it was just his way of, again, not really realising at such a young age how much confidence he was giving me. But I wasn't. Let me tell you, I wasn't treated because I was younger any different to your Peter Shiltons, to your John McGoverns, and all these unbelievable players that I was now part of. So I was getting praised and I was getting rollickings off the Gaffers. The rest of them were. Yeah,
and that must have been a good learning curve for you as well at that stage, and you even scored, I think, in the weeks leading up to the first European Cup final. It was a win at Leeds.
Yeah.
Although Trevor Francis had come in to the side, had you hoped to play some sort of part in that first European Cup final?
Yeah, absolutely. I was sort of playing well, certainly the back end of the season, and that game at Leeds, was my first goal against David Harvey at Leeds United, who played in goal. And I can remember having an outstanding game that night. And, the European Cup was coming round, and, I'd been part of the games previous, either on the bench or, I played against AEK Athens and I was part of it. And, I was actually named on the bench for the first one. And then I was taken off a couple of hours before the game. So that, as much as that was disappointing for me, and it was it was being part of something at 17. And I didn't feel inferior, and I didn't feel that I was just lucky to be part of that because I was younger. I was actually, at a time, because of what happened from the age of 14, I felt that I was, just as much as part of that squad as anybody else in the team at the time.
And in October 79, there was another article about you apparently catching the eye of England manager Ron Greenwood. And this article says the result could be the youth international call-up criminally denied Mills, who celebrates his 18th birthday next month. And obviously a lot of good media attention there. That did you more good than harm, do you think?
Yeah, again, absolutely. Brian Clough and Peter Taylor believed in me so much as a young player, and I played my part. I was playing in incredible games at a young age, AEK Athens at the age of 16 and Argis Bates, which I can remember after that game. We were in the airport lounge and the gaffer called me over and said, "I want a word with you, son." And I said, "Yes, boss." He went, "You were the best player on the field tonight, son, by a long way, long way, son." And he said that to me and then went, "That's enough. Now go and sit back over there." and it was just the way, So, yeah, I mean, look, to be 2 European Cups, 17, 18, it was an incredible time for me in what was an unbelievable side, winning week in, week out. I remember going to Anfield, playing in the second leg of the semi-final of the League Cup, and playing well there and helping us get through to another League Cup final. At Anfield, so when you come out at Anfield, you look at the sign, this is Anfield. And,
yeah.
I was 17. It was incredible.
And of course, it culminated in you playing in the second European Cup final. And shall we say a very relaxed preparation for such a big game?
I like it, Marcus. I like how you say that. It certainly was. But it was his way of relaxing us, taking our minds off it, getting us away from all the press and all the headlines and everything. So we were sat on a beach and we was having a few beers and not really thinking about the following week when the game was coming around. And all I can say is genius, absolute genius from the management of doing that. Again, not realising that was the case at the time, really. And, he was way ahead of his time when doing things like that. And, again, obviously everyone have heard this many times, but we never trained once that week. In fact, we hardly trained when we actually got to Madrid. Where Schultz, I trained Schultz, as everybody knows, on a roundabout in Madrid. So you couldn't make it up, could you? So really couldn't.
It was you taking shots at Peter Shilton, was it, on the traffic?
Yeah, myself and Jimmy Gordon. And the gaffer said, Young Millsy, go and get that bag of balls and go and train Peter because Peter wants to train. And so me and Jimmy Gordon were on this roundabout, and he was throwing balls to me and I was volleying them to Schultz.
Yeah. And I know he said in one of his autobiographies, what's wrong with playing an 18-year-old in a European Cup final if you think he's good enough? Management is about judgment, not the ability to read a birth certificate. Did he say anything to you before the game, or any bit of advice, or just let it flow?
Just let it flow, go and do your job. You know what your job is. I was playing up front with Gary Birtles, and after 10 minutes, I was told to come back and play in midfield, and we'd never ever. So I go and do my job, but I didn't know what my job was to go back into midfield. And all it was really was to fill the gap where they had so much of the ball that we ended up playing 4-5-1. Well, I think it's the first time that Forest had ever played 4-5-1. It just happened to be in the European Cup final, something we'd never worked on on the training field.
Yeah.
And I was told to go and do a job there, and that's exactly what I'd done. You know, with good players around me. It's incredible, really. You couldn't make it up, Marcus.
It's almost like a fairy story, isn't it? You know, to be in that environment and on that stage at such a young age. I mean, looking back now, was it hard sort of then to build on that incredible success as a young player, because you'd set the bar so high early on?
Yeah, well, you know, where do you go from there? Yeah. You know, at 18, I'd had an incredible, you know, like England schoolboys, England youth, 2 European Cup finals, and I was 18, and I'm a human being, you know, and it's you have to be some person not to let it affect you slightly, that think, you know, this game's just easy, you know, it's just going to come along like this all the time, and you soon learn that that's not the case. So, you know, the next couple of years, obviously we got knocked out first round the following season, and you know, things started to change a little bit, and you know, it was learning then exactly what the game was all about, and off I went to America, you know, for a little stint after all that success.
Yeah, it was the Seattle Sounders, I think, wasn't it, you played for? How different was that to what you'd been used to?
Well, we were English. Alan Hinton, who obviously played under the Gaffer. That was the reason he got myself and Peter Ward over there. But Steve Daly played there, Kenny Hibbett, Roger Davis, Alan Hudson. You know, great players that, again, at 20, I went to play with. So there was the razzmatazz there. It was you know, totally different off the field, and the way we were introduced on the field was totally different. But you know, we got to the Soccer Bowl final. So I'd got to the European Cup finals, and then I actually got to the Soccer Bowl final. You know, playing against your Carlos Albertos, who I'd watched in the World Cup to captain Brazil. Certainly in 1970 when I was 9, I'll never forget it. And, you know, Pele was there because he was part of New York Cosmos. And
wow,
what's going on here?
Yeah.
I'm still only 20. What's going on? So it was incredible time for me. Yeah,
and you were back at Forest after that, weren't you? I think. And I've got a programme somewhere. If I just reach down here, it's Anderlecht, 1984. And if I just turn to the page, it's the Cloughie Calling, where he does his programme notes.
Yes,
and you get a special mention here, which I like. He says he was surprised the local paper hadn't reported the reserve side's 2-1 win against Central League leaders Everton. He said it wasn't as if there were no storylines to report on. Our goal scorers were Gary Mills and Stephen Murray. He says, I could write a book about both of them, never mind a paragraph. And he says it was big news on Saturday that Gary played in our first team and did so well on his comeback v West Brom, which you won 3-1. Do you remember that?
I do. I believe I scored in that game as well.
Yeah.
You know, against West Brom, and it had been a tough time for me because I had an horrific leg break, my second spell in America.
Right.
So I had to work so hard. I was determined. I thought, you know, it was the end of my career when I had the break. It was horrific.
Yeah.
You know, the bottom of my leg didn't belong to me. It wasn't good. So it made me sort of sit back and be more determined than ever. I always, you know, regarded myself as a good professional anyway. And this was my life, and you know, a leg break like that wasn't going to stop me getting back. So I'd worked so hard, and then to get back into the first team mould, and you know, again getting praise from the manager was great for me. You know, and you know, that's the end of that season. It was the end of my contract. And you know, I was offered a new 3-year contract, which meant so much to me.
Looking back now, obviously you went into management. Had you always had that idea of coaching and management?
Yes, certainly. When I did go to Leicester, I was then sort of getting to the 30 mark, and I'd captained Leicester for a couple of seasons, and I started to have my own judgment on a dressing room. I mean, my judgment on the game, and I obviously with the Gaffer at Forest, man management was massive.
Yeah.
David Pleat took me into Leicester. I wasn't with him for long because he got the sack, but his methods of how he wanted the game being played was on the deck. It was unbelievable, really. Without the discipline that I'd always had at Forest, and then Brian Little came in, and it was no different. So, with all the mix of managers that I'd been, Neil Warnock, I'd had Neil Warnock as well, John Barnwell,
yes,
and so a mix, but I'd had my own ideas, and some of the management that I'd been managed by. Some of it I didn't like. Some of it I took on, and I thought this is what I want to take myself into management. So yeah, by the time I was 30, I always knew I wanted to not manage more than coach. To be honest,
yes.
I wanted to sort of the man management side, and that's remained with me.
And were there times, or are there still times, maybe, where you're faced with a situation as a manager, and you think, what would Cloughie have done in this situation, especially with the man management side of things? Does that still have an effect?
Yeah, listen, absolutely. I'm not going to lie. The man management side is massive in for any manager, as far as I'm concerned, and every player needs to be man managed.
Yeah,
and those times at Forest, I've been managing now for 25 years, and I've taken those into the clubs that I've been into, and some of them get questioned because some of them are very, very much like we've done at Forest. So you can imagine why they get questioned, but they're done for a reason.
Yeah. You've written a book, Young Millsy, it's called. Why did you decide that the time was right now to put your memories together in a book?
People have said to me for a number of years now, write a book. You've had an unbelievable career, and people will be very interested, and you always wonder, would they be? And then I sort of sat back, then COVID and lockdown, and I thought it was the perfect time, so I was writing stuff down. I started to really get excited about the book, and it's just about my life, right from a young lad, from a village down in Northampton to now. Yeah. So it's right to today, about my life in football, and I thoroughly enjoyed doing it, and hopefully everybody that gets the book will enjoy reading.
Yeah. And signed copies are available. You can look at the show notes for this episode of The Green Jumper for more details on how to get your copy. Before you go, Gary, I know you were among the former players who attended the unveiling of the bronze statue in Nottingham back in 2008, along with all his family and a huge crowd. Yeah. I helped to put that all together by setting up the fundraising committee. It really was a memorable day, wasn't it? Did you have special memories of that day?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously a special day for his family. A beautiful family.
Yeah.
And for us to be there and be part of that, and because we were part of that and the success. And when you stand there, and I certainly stand there as a player that played under him, I just felt so proud. I just felt part of it, and we were one big family, and I think that was a lot of the key to the success. It is as I'm saying that to you now, I'm getting shivers down my spine, because unless you were part of that, it's hard really to understand, maybe. But we still get together. When we get together, it's special times, and we still laugh and take the mickey out of each other. But we all respect each other and know what we achieved and how we achieved it. So it was a special day, obviously for a special man that gave us the memories. And people talk to me now about the money in the game of football. And I always say I'm not interested. I would never ever swap those years that make me rich in memories. Which is special.
Well, Gary Mills, it's been a real pleasure talking to you, and thanks very much for sharing those memories.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And you can win a copy of Gary's book, Young Millsy, signed by Gary himself. All you have to do is answer the following question. On the roundabout in Madrid before the European Cup final, who was throwing the footballs for Gary to volley at Peter Shilton? For the full terms and conditions and how to enter, just visit the podcast page on the Tribute website, brianclough.com. The question again, on the roundabout in Madrid before the European Cup final, who was throwing the footballs for Gary to volley at Peter Shilton? Just visit the podcast page on the website to enter. Thanks again for listening, and it's brilliant to see that the pod has been downloaded in more than 50 countries now. Incredible. I hope you can join me again when we'll share more memories of the great man in the green jumper.